Brother-in-law's confession shatters family harmony. Anyway, yesterday my brother-in-law out of the blue asks my wife if she can meet him for lunch. There is something he needs to talk to her about. My wife tells me about it before accepting and asks if it might have something to do with my sister. Maybe they are having problems and he wants to discuss with another woman. I find it odd, but I tell her to go find out. So she accepts and they meet for lunch at a place near her office the next day. That's where he tells her that he is in love with her. He lays it on thick how beautiful she is, how she makes him feel, how he would treat her if she were his, how it was love at first sight, blah blah blah. Mind you, this man is married to my sister and has 2 kids. He and my wife had a friendly relationship. Our families see each other often, as we are a close family. He does text her frequently, but there was nothing overly sexual. My brother-in-law texts and calls my mom too, so none of us thought anything of it. I want to stop a moment and emphasize that my wife isn't cheating on me with him. My wife and I share an iPad, and I see every one of her texts from there. We are also looking at each other's phones all the time, so none of that is going on. So she doesn't let him finish, walks out, and calls me immediately to tell me what happened. While she is on the phone with me, the texts from him start. He didn't mean it. He thinks it's only infatuation, blah blah blah. She leaves work early to come home to talk to me about this, and her phone is blowing up the entire time with calls and texts from him. I tell her to answer, and she put him on speaker so I can hear. He's crying, begging not to tell my sister. Apparently, when we were together this past weekend, he thought that she was flirting with him, and that he thought they had a moment when they were alone in our kitchen. Now my wife is a major ballbuster, and I suppose I can see how that can be taken as flirting. He asks if she told me, to which I answer yes as I am on speaker. Then he starts begging me. This went on a while. My main question was whether he had cheated on my sister before. He said no, swore on his kids' lives. It's just my wife, he said I should understand. So, I'm done listening at that point, and told him I wasn't going to do anything tonight, and I would call him tomorrow.
That's where we are right now, and I really don't know what to do. My wife says drive over there right now and tell my sister, but the idea of wrecking my sister's family is killing me. Thinking about what it will do to my nieces makes me want to vomit. I know the right thing to do is tell my sister, but I am also thinking about my wife as well. It's not her fault, but there is sure to be resentment toward her from my family. Even if my sister doesn't divorce him, and they reconcile, I can't see how we are ever together again, like we were before, if at all. This whole episode can tear my family apart. I don't give a shit about him. He tried to destroy my family, but I do care about everyone else. I don't know what to do. Any advice will help. Update. So everyone that told me last night that I couldn't wait to tell my sister was right. A little after 12 last night, I get a call from my sister and says that she has to tell me that my wife tried to begin an affair with her husband. So he tried to pin it on her. I told her that's not the case and I will be right over. So I get on the phone, wake my mother and father, tell them what's going on, wake my younger brother, tell him. My mom and dad head to my sister's to sit with their kids, and my brother comes to our house to sit with ours and my wife, and I head over. My sister is out in the front porch with my brother-in-law when we get there. He looks beaten. He knows we have texts and voicemail. I really don't know what he was hoping to accomplish. My wife gives my sister her phone. She sees the texts, listens to the voicemails, and he starts sobbing before she can say anything. My brother-in-law is a firefighter, a big tough guy, so this is a scene. My sister is pretty tough. She tells him to stop it, pack a bag and go. She can't stand to look at him. There's more begging, but she has no patience for it. So my sister walks off to talk with my wife. I see them hugging, so at least I feel like they are okay. They have actually been friends since college. I met my wife through my sister. So they are tight. The thought of this wrecking her friendship had been weighing on me. This leaves me with my brother-in-law. He's broken, so I feel more sympathy than anger. He says he's sorry. He just couldn't help it. It's not hard to fall in love with my wife, so I get it, but damn man. He eventually picks himself up and leaves. So we are there all night. My sister starts asking my wife why her husband would think any of this would work out. He had to have some reason to believe that she felt the same way. My sister says they hadn't been having problems. Everything was as it had always been. My wife is crying at this point and says there's nothing you haven't seen. She gives my sister her phone again, and they read every text ever sent over the past 2 years. Nothing there. My wife was just herself. She has a playful personality, and so does my brother-in-law, so they tease each other. She does the same to my mom and younger brother as well.
The only thing she could think of was the moment in the kitchen this past weekend he referenced. They both went for the fridge at the same time, and they playfully jostled for who would get there first. He lets her win, but he reaches around her waist to get a beer slowly, and she did feel the way that he did. It was little inappropriate. She says she should have called him on it, but didn't want to make it a big thing. She feels maybe the fact that she didn't give him hope. My sister doesn't blame her, so at least that's good. So then my sister starts going through his MacBook to see what else she doesn't know about. She's angry and frantic at this point. She guesses the password, starts searching, and finds a lot of pictures of my wife on that computer. They went back years and always isolated on just her. We had gone as couples to the Caribbean a few years earlier. My wife wore a bikini. She usually doesn't, but since it was adults, only she did. There were probably 50 of her in that bathing suit. So he's secretly been snapping these for years. Does this now enter retraining order territory? This has taken a creepy turn. I'll update when I have more. Update 2. Unfortunately, the mess continues. My sister agreed to talk to her husband last night and let him explain. She puts my wife on FaceTime during this conversation, so there will be no lying. I'm listening in as well off camera. My sister is also recording the whole thing. He admits he's been obsessed with my wife for years. It started the day he met her. My wife and I were dating at the time, but he met my wife before he met me. Like I said, my wife and sister are longtime friends, and my sister wanted to introduce her boyfriend to her friends. He thought it was only physical for a while, but over time he knew it was more. My sister nearly kicks him out right there, but listens a little more, and she eventually asks what made him think that my wife would leave me for him. He answers that there is obviously mutual attraction, and he figured it would begin as an affair, and then things would progress from there. My wife and sister explode at that point. A lot of cussing, a lot of screaming. Phone call is over. My wife hangs up because at this point she is concerned for me. She's shaken and distraught. Assures me the attraction was one-sided. I never thought it wasn't. Even if she did find him physically attractive, I know she would never act on it. She's just not the type. Early on in our relationship, she caught me admiring her as she was dressing, asked if I liked what I saw before her face turned cold, and told me never to fuck up, or I'd never see it again. She meant it. She's serious about trust. Anyway, I knew my brother-in-law was a little cocky, but my God, I never knew he thought that highly of himself to be able to pull off something like this. I talked to my sister later on, and she is contacting the lawyer Monday to see what steps she can take to limit his exposure to her kids. As far as she is concerned, he is detached from reality. That's all I have for now. I'll update once the dust settles a bit. Update 3. Anyway, my brother-in-law returned home yesterday, not because my sister wants him back, but because she can't legally stop him. They are done. I think he realizes that now. The lawyer tells my sister that since my brother-in-law's behavior over the past few days has been documented, there is a good chance she will be granted full custody. He doesn't seem to even want to fight her on that. My sister will be fine. Any love she had for him is gone, and she doesn't seem to broken up about it. The kids don't know what happened yet, but my brother-in-law was never around much anyway when the kids were home. He slept at the fire station many nights and put in a lot of overtime. But it is certain to be hard on them once they know what's going to happen. Many commenters have said that there must be more women, but as far as we can tell, there hasn't been. It's really just the obsession with my wife. She has blocked his phone, but on the same night he returned home, he sends my wife an email from a count he just made. It started with an apology, but then took a turn. He said he never got to finish at the restaurant that day. Then he went on for paragraphs and paragraphs about all the things he loves about my wife, and the desperation he felt that led him to do what he did. He mentioned their mutual attraction again, and the sexual tension that he always felt was between them, and ended with a rather large section about me. Let's just say I didn't know he had such a low opinion of me. He was quite certain that I was not satisfying my wife properly. Anyway, we sent the email to my sister, and it will go to the lawyer. It might be enough to get him removed from the house. Finally, my wife isn't great, but she is doing better every day. She does blame herself for being too comfortable around my brother-in-law. She is always careful to set boundaries with other men. In case you haven't figured it out already, my wife is pretty stunning and gets a lot of male attention. But with my brother-in-law, she felt safe to be herself since he was family. Surely no lines would be crossed. She and my sister are cool, and there doesn't appear to be any resentment, so that makes me happy. We will all be okay. It will just take time. Thanks to all who commented and voiced their support.